Recording. There we go.
Yep, recording now.
Nice to meet you, Antonella. Thank you. All right. So just a couple of things before we begin. As you know, Daptiv is a pure SaaS solution, so it's available from any of the major web browsers. We support all the major ones, so Safari, Chrome, Mozilla, Firefox, and Internet Explorer, as well as mobile web browsers.
Okay.
So we will go ahead and go through the full end-to-end lifecycle, like Mark said. Just a couple things. So Daptiv is a role-based solution. So depending on the individual that logs into the solution, that will determine what they have access to see and interact with. Across the blue strip here at the top are what are called our global tabs. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm actually logged in as an administrator. So if I click on the more, you can see that I have access to everything in the solution. I can access all the different functionality and etc. What I'm going to quickly do to show you an example of our role-based logging and security, I'm going to impersonate a user called Anna, who is one of the analysts set up in the solution. And you will see that Anna, being an analyst, she only interacts with certain parts of the solution. So you can see that she has her dashboards, she has tasks that are assigned to her. She's got her timesheets, which are her default screen when she logs in, so she can fill in time against tasks. She's got any discussions she wants to take part in or is a part of, and her calendar, so she can look at her month and so forth, and kind of plan accordingly and see what's coming up. So again, she's only got access to 5 main areas of the solution, and you can see that more screen that I clicked on earlier is gone, so she's not able to access anything else. And really, that's what the solution set up. And this is based at the higher level here, but these role-based permissions and settings also trickle down to the project level, as well as different artifacts. So some users or roles may have access to financial information while others may not. So there are multiple layers of that role-based access that we can apply within the solutions.
Yep.
All right. So starting at the start of the life cycle, we're looking to, or most organizations are looking to get an idea, some visibility around the demand coming into the organization. So through the request section here at the top, we can actually capture that demand and analyze it. So this section of Daptiv can actually be set up as a web form so that anyone in your organization can submit requests to the business. And one thing you'll notice by looking at this table here, and I'll increase it a little bit just so it's not small. Can you see the screen okay? Can you read the writing all right? Yep. Excellent. So one thing you'll notice here is that on this table we have some out-of-the-box scoring. So Daptiv is implemented with what we call our corporate solutions template, which is kind of a set of best practice templates. And we have just out of the box a risk, size, benefit, and overall score that you can apply for your prioritization. Now, Daptiv itself is highly configurable, and by configuration, we don't mean coding, we mean end user wizard-driven configuration. Which is really quite easy to do, and I'll show you some examples of that later on in the demonstration. But being highly configurable, we can of course replace these out-of-the-box data points here with whatever scoring or prioritization metrics you may have, and that way you can make sure that your pipeline is being analyzed correctly. Now, with a lot of these different global sections here at the top, we have what right underneath this more views option. So really that's our first layer, I guess you can say, of reporting. They're not really reports, but views. And that really allows you to create multiple views for the different stakeholders that will access this information. So you may want to analyze these pipeline requests by geographic location, by department or by business unit, etc., or even maybe by project type. So the larger projects will go to maybe a committee for analysis, while some of the smaller ones can be approved locally. That kind of stuff. So we allow you to really slice and dice the information in Daptiv and create multiple views for those stakeholders. The other thing we can do here is, if I click on the actions button on one of these requests, we can edit and add reviewers. We can, if we have the permissions, we can approve and decline requests. We can attach documents. And we can also edit what are called the resource requirements. Now, this is at a very high level, at a role-based level. So you're saying basically here that, I need an analyst or a developer or a project manager for so many hours per month. So it's not at the named user level at the moment. It's just at the role level. So if I click on Add New Requirement, it gives me a list of all the roles I have in my organization, and I can add an analyst, for example, if that's something I wanted to add. Now, these are just high-level estimates, and what they're actually used for is to drive the next step in this process. So once we have our pipeline projects captured, that demand has been captured and analyzed and prioritized, the next step is to jump over to our capacity planner and to make sure that as an organization, we have the capacity to bring on all of these new projects. It's a bit light on data at the moment, but I will show you what I mean with this REST encryption project. So looking at this REST encryption project, so actually let me explain the actual structure of the page first. So what we have on top is our unplanned project. So that's everything in the pipeline. So you can see that the state here is request. We have everything that's currently being requested. And down at the bottom, we have the planned projects, so anything that's in progress. And then, of course, at the very bottom, we have the list of roles within our organization and the overall aggregate capacity of those roles in hours per month. We can change that in the top right of this page. We can choose to view this in costs, or we can even set it up in FTEs, and we can view it by month or by week here when we do this high-level forecasting. Okay. So one thing we can do right away, and we can see that if we were to take on all this work, which is what this is showing, we will have some capacity constraints here in the coming next 2 months. There's a couple things we can do. First, we can completely get rid of a project. So I'm going to open up this REST encryption project, and there's 2 reasons I do that. Firstly, it has the highest resource demand. And secondly, it is the lowest scored priority on our pipeline list here. So this would be a candidate to remove if we wanted to. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to remove it. Right away, it gets grayed out and taken out of this calculation. And you can see now at the bottom, we don't have any more resource constraints. Once we remove this project from our portfolio or this request, we can take on the rest of the pipeline projects without any issue whatsoever.
Okay.
If this was, sorry, go ahead. Was there a question or?
No, that was good.
If this was a must-do project, a compliance project, something we had to take on board, then we can do some extra analysis. We can take the entire project and we can move it, and let's shift it out to May or June. And we can see that we'll still have a bit of engineering issues in July. Then we can further say, well, we can take this engineering role and let's actually split it up. Let's only do 300 hours in July and push those 80 hours out to August. If that's available, if we can do that, then we can see now we've kind of smoothed the capacity issue we had. We've taken care of that. So you can start to play around with these. You can start to move not only overall projects, forward and backward in time, but also actual specific roles. So what happens if we move this role out by a month or bring it forward by a month, how does that affect our capacity in the organization? So you can start to do this analysis and planning, so you can analyze what's the best way to actually onboard these projects in terms of minimal resource impact to the organization.
And this capacity plan is just resource-based?
It is just resource-based, yes. This is just resource-based. So okay. At this point in the request phase, you would have captured the demand, you would have prioritized it by whatever metrics you may use within your organization in terms of importance. And then now it's looking at the request in the context of the entire portfolio and trying to figure out, which projects can we bring on, or how many of these requests can we bring on before we run into any capacity hurdles. And if we do run into capacity hurdles, what can we do? Can we move things around? Can we shift the order of the onboarding process, or do we just flat out need to hire more resources to make sure we can do, the portfolio that we want to run, et cetera. So again, just a high-level planning tool in the early stages.
And just a quick question, you mentioned on
Sure.
When you do the request and you've got those overall scores to kind of set its priority, did you say those fields were configurable?
Yes. So going back to the request, I'm going to leave this page. These fields here are configurable.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and in fact, all the fields are configurable, not just the scoring fields. Okay. So you can start to configure the fields throughout the entire solution. Okay, so once you've done that analysis, you've gone through the capacity planner, you're happy with the direction you want to take in terms of bringing on these new projects. You can see here down at the bottom of the request, there is one that has been approved, and now we just need to create a project from that. So I can click on this actions button and I can say generate a workspace, and that will go ahead and create a project or whatever type of workspace this may be for, and populate it with all the information obviously that's been populated so far in the process, and create a project. So that's that kind of formal process a lot of organizations go through. However, like I mentioned, you may have compliance projects or must-do projects for whatever reason. Then of course we recommend the use of our templating system. So if I go up to the template section in Daptiv, you can go ahead and set up multiple templates for the different types of work that you do. And then all the project manager would have to do would be to come to the actions button and say, create a workspace from this template. And that will be pre-populated with whatever is specified in the template. It could be, a general schedule. It could be documents and artifacts. It could be risks, issues, lessons learned, etc.
Okay. And Aaron's just walked in the room now, so he's out of his meeting.
Hi, Alex.
Hello. How's it going, Aaron?
I'm well. Sorry I'm so late.
That's okay. That's okay. We are recording this for you, so you can go back and look at anything that you've missed so far. We've just covered the Daptiv's request or demand capture capability and the ability to prioritize those demands and look at your your overall resources and kind of plan that capacity of how you're going to onboard those projects.
Right.
So again, we do recommend the use of templates, obviously for compliance reasons, and then you can go ahead and configure as many as you like depending on the different types. So you can see here we have agile project types, we have IT projects, etc. So what I'll do, we spoke about earlier that Daptiv is extremely user-friendly, and all of the configuration in Daptiv is all end-user wizard-driven, so no custom coding or anything like that. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and create a fast-track plan project from a workspace template. and I'll show you what I mean by wizard-driven end user configuration, as you can see now on the screen. So we're going to go ahead and create a project, and it's all done through this template wizard, which a lot of the configuration in Daptiv is done this way. It'll specify what fields are required, which is just, in this case, is the name. I'm just going to put test project. I can specify plan start, plan finish, priority, etc. And I'm going to go ahead in the advanced settings tab. I'm going to click over to that. And here I can actually specify where in my corporate portfolio I want this project to live. So I've put it under the architecture program. Now this project was associated with the type IT project. So in the IT project, there will be some fields specified for that type of project. So I've come over to the custom field section. You can see tons of information here, but the only field that is actually required is the alignment objectives. So I'm going to click on two. I'm going to click on increase efficiency and increase brand awareness. But you can see that we can have drop-down menus pre-populated. You can see that the selections in these drop-down menus have numbers in brackets. So that indicates some sort of weighting. So we can provide that, and that's how we get those prioritization scores as well. So we can provide, weighting and everything at the field level for that purpose. All right. So now that I've filled in the only required field, I'm going to go to the Applications tab, and I'm going to select which applications we want to use for this project. Now you can see that there are some pre-selected because we have started from a template. And those have been included in this template. But for this specific project, let's just say that I don't need alignment, but I would like, for example, a budget plan and a benefits register. Everything else looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and just say finish. So it will go ahead now and create a project from that template and pre-populate it with any information or artifacts that was in that template. Any questions so far, guys, before we keep going forward with this?
No, it all looks good from my perspective.
Yeah, no, keep going, please.
No problem. All right. So now that we've created our test project, which is an IT project, you can see in the top left, it'll specify the name of the project and the type of project that it is. Now we can start to add information. So I'll look at some of these applications and discuss them in more details. What we're looking at now is the overview application, the one that's opened up here in the top left. So with these applications as well, Daptiv also lets you create views. So we give the end user the ability to choose how they want to digest information. So what we're looking at here is our PM dashboard view. You can think of this as a project on a page kind of view, and I'll show you what we mean. I'm going to quickly jump into an existing project in the demo environment, a larger project that has a bit more information, a project called Big Fish Migration. So this is a lot larger project. You'll see tons of information in here and a lot more applications associated with it. So just know that sometimes this could be a bit overwhelming looking at all these applications on the left-hand side here. Again, one of Daptiv's strengths is the ability to configure. So we can make projects as small or as large as they need to be and configure them with as many applications as they need to function properly. So again, back to this PM dashboard, we can see some information here, and this is where the PM can put little widgets on this page, directly specifying obviously important information. So I can see here that there are 32 overdue tasks. Now, if I click on that, this will take me to the schedule, and it will take me to a view that shows me just those 32 overdue tasks. So it lets me really target information that may be of interest. So you can see here now we're in the tasks application. If we look on the left-hand side, and we are looking at just the overdue tasks here. I click on all tasks and get a view of that. So that overview is really good in that sense. Going back to the overview, I can select a different type of view if I wanted to. For example, like a normal dashboard, and that will give me profile and status information. So I'll have my profile on the left, which you can think of as your high-level business information. You know, why are we doing this project? Who's supporting it? Who's, etc. And then on the right-hand side is the most up-to-date status information. So, you know, where are we at in terms of work, in terms of scheduled and estimated work? What does our budget look like? The health of a budget, the health of the risk, etc. And of course, all of these fields are completely configurable. So if you want to bring across your own naming conventions, etc., that can be easily done in Daptiv.
Okay.
The admin, the status history view here in the overview is really great because it provides, you know, that auditability. So we have every single status update that's ever been done to this project. We can see who and on what date that status update was run, and we can see all of the information as it changes. So we do have that audit history there. So from the admin, this is obviously very self-explanatory. We can administer this project. So we can do things like administer all of the workflow within this project. We can create a new template from this project, or we can create a whole new project. So like project cloning, for example, we can clone this project just by saying create a workspace. And then of course we can do things like link. So Daptiv has the concept of linking, where we can link different entities in the solution. So, you know, we can link tasks to issues, to risks, to documents. We can link projects between one another. We can link projects to other artifacts, etc. All right. So the two main applications where a PM will spend most of their time will be in the resources application and the tasks application. So very quickly, let's take a look at the resources application. The resources application is where we have our resource plan. So Daptiv, in terms of resource planning, supports both a top-down and bottom-up approach, depending on the preference of the organization or the individual project manager. The resource plan is, if you work solely in the resource plan, that's a very top-down approach where I can come into the resource plan, I can click on my requirements and say I need to add a resource type, I need, you know, a production designer, for example, and I can add that to this plan. And you can see if I just quickly close all of this, we can see all the high-level role-based requirements here. And then we can break this down into the named, for example, specific requirements. So once I have those high-level role-based requirements, then I can go ahead and request directly from that section. So I can click on the plus next to the contractors, and I can say, you know, I want to add an actual contractor. And there's two ways to do it. You can either add a resource, which is a specific named contractor. So there may be someone I've worked with in the past, and I want to request, that person, that individual. Or I can just request a resource manager, and that will show me all of the resource managers in the organization that have contractors in their resource pool. So whoever manages the external contractors, for example, will have them. And I can just click on that person, and it'll send off that request to that individual. Okay. In terms of utilizing the resource plan for not only planning, but, you know, getting insights into your resource utilization, there's actually quite a lot of information we can toggle on the screen. So firstly, if we look in the top right, we can do our resource planning. Oh, let me save this first. Excuse me. We can do our resource planning in a number of different ways. We can do it in hours or FTEs, and we can do it by month, week, or day. So again, that can be set corporately, or that can be a preference of the project manager. We can also toggle information on the resource plan. So on the bottom left, there's a little display icon here. If I click on that display icon, I can actually select what I want to view on the screen. Right now, we're looking at allocation as well as unsubmitted and pending hours and scheduled hours. I may want to view financials. So what are the internal and external rates of these resources? And I could get that information on the screen. I could also view comparisons. So if I want to view actual versus scheduled hours, I can click on that, and that will add that, that box here under the current month and every month thereafter. So let me remove financials. So you can see that under every month here in the top, we have the different boxes for information that we can toggle off and on. Okay. And you can see that the actual versus schedule appears color coded. We can actually set those color thresholds as well. And then they can be different for every project. So I may want it, below 80% and above 120, or whatever I may choose to make those thresholds when I do that comparison. And I can turn all that off. I can view as little or as much information as I want on a resource plan. The other very important application is the task application. So this is our built-in scheduling engine. And of course here with scheduling, we provide a number of ways to do the scheduling as well. The first view, the one that we're looking at, is the task list. So this is very similar to an Excel spreadsheet. You have your column, rows, etc. I can click on the task and do my inline editing, or I can right-click on the task and say edit task, and it'll pop up a edit task window on the right-hand side, and I can edit as much information as I want. I can add resources here, etc. You can see that we can view status information, so I can see overdue tasks and completed tasks with the color coding here in green and red. I can also, for example, click on this little arrow button here at the top, and that will turn on critical path. So I can view the critical path, and everything that's in the critical path will be highlighted red.
Okay.
So that's a very simple task list. But again, what we tend to find from feedback is the majority of PMs say that they like to work in our interactive Gantt chart, which is another view we have here. So if I click on the interactive Gantt chart, it'll open up in a whole new window. And this is great because it actually provides a bit more extra information than the task list. So what we're seeing here, we can still split this screen. So if I slide this screen over, and I can still come into this area, and I can still do my editing here and fill in all this text-based information like we did in the task list. But then I can also get more visibility here in the Gantt area. So first of all, on the very first line, I can see these two little red folders. That's telling me that there is a cross-project dependency that's at risk. And I can look into that and get more information on that. The other thing we can do at this level, again, we can click on those arrows again and view the critical path, and that'll highlight red, as you can see there. If I turn that off. Right next to the arrows, you'll see a little pie chart. And this is where we get a bit of extra functionality in this view. So if I'm building out my schedule in the Gantt chart view, and I'm starting to enter tasks, etc., I can see in the right-hand side, you'll see a little window called resources. Those are all the resources, and I just closed it, excuse me. Those are all the resources that are members of this project and can be assigned to tasks. So if I'm looking at a specific task, right away, I'm just going to toggle the little pie chart. And what that actually does is it toggles what's called a resource utilization display. Now, as I switch from task to task, so let's start with task number 4. I'm just going to click on that. So as I'm looking at this task, which runs from, looks like late January to early March, you'll see now every single one of those resources has a pie chart next to their name. And that pie chart indicates their current utilization for that specific time period. And it's their utilization across the enterprise, so not just for this project. So I can see that if I wanted to add an analyst, I couldn't add Amy because she's already overutilized. And if I hover over her name, I can see that she is 127% utilized. And if I go, obviously up this, it'll get lighter and lighter. So if I wanted to add, for example, an engineer, I can see Betty and Dawn have absolutely no utilization, and I can pick Dawn or Betty, and I can drag and drop them to that task, and that will automatically assign them to that task 100% of their time. And I can go ahead and change that. So I can see Dawn now here is 100%, and let's say I only want him 40%, for example. I can go ahead and do that here.
And does that all link back to the capacity planning and everything?
Yes, it all links back. You can see it. You can see the change in the task list. You can see the change in the capacity planner.
Okay. So wherever you change a resource or capacity, it all automatically changes in the capacity planner.
Yeah, it's all linked together, so it'll make those necessary changes. Excellent. So, excuse me. So as you see, as I move from task to task, those pie charts will change in real time, and I can see now during this period, I'm going to have a harder time assigning resources. There are more people that are getting close to their utilization. Okay. There's also a baselines window, so I can view baselines as well and compare baselines against the current schedule. There's only one baseline in there, but you can hold multiple baselines, and I can see there that I'm running a little bit behind schedule. Mm-hmm. So again, a bit of extra functionality as compared to that task list. Now, we also have a view, a task board view. This is a very Kanban-inspired work management view that we provide that makes it easy for users to come and update their task statuses. So what I'm going to quickly do is change the workflow to Daptiv task statuses. So the Daptiv task status workflow is based on whatever these phases are in your projects that you create. So for this project, we have not started, on hold, in progress, and completed. It's very, very basic and straightforward. If I click on the little information button in the top right, it'll actually tell me what those workflows entail. So I can see that if I move a task from not started to in progress, it automatically sets the completion to 50%. Which is very basic and generic. Now, if I go to, with these task boards, we have 7 industry best practice task boards or workflows included. So if I go to something like Scaled Agile Framework, we can see that those running lanes now change. And if I click, again, that information button, I can see the workflow built into this. So if I move a task from analyze to build, the percentage complete goes from 20 to 60%, for example. So, and you can have, of course, your own customized workflows entered as well. And you can see it's just very easy. I can drag and drop these tasks in the different running lanes, wherever I may want to put them. If I double click on one of these tasks again, or sorry, just click on it, I can add a checklist, I can add documents, I can add resources to this task, I can fill in information here as well. So a very Kanban and Agile inspired work management view that we provide as well there. Just quickly covering some of these other applications. In terms of documents, we have full document management capability. So check in, check out, version control. Again, you can still split views here. So I can have a list view, for example, that shows all of my documents. So these are all of the documents so far that are part of this project. I can see here in this little column with the arrow that all of these documents are linked to something. So for example, the planning checklist is linked to another task, and a gating looks like a stage gate, check 1. So we can link artifacts. I did build a folder view, so you can see that you can create different views for these applications. So now what I've done is I've created a folder for each of the phases of this project. So in, for example, the design phase, there should be something like a design doc. There we go, a functional spec doc. So we can break down some of these that way as well by creating different views.
Okay.
Now, all of the documents stored in this document application are stored in Daptiv. You may have your own external repository or something that you guys already use, in which case you can quickly jump over to this links application. And it works just the same way as the documents application, except that all of these are just links to external repositories. So we have a bookmark for a website, and then we have a SharePoint document as well. So you can just go ahead and link external documents should you not want to upload those to Daptiv.
Okay.
Now, another key differentiator for us, which lets us kind of work not only across multiple industry sectors, but also across multiple size organizations, is that all of these applications you see here on the left-hand side. So if I click, for example, I'll use the risk application as an example. If I click on this risk application, you can see that it is just a register of information. If I click add, you can see that out of the box we have some fields configured. Is it a program level item? What is the status of this risk, etc. And the reason we call these dynamic applications is that we give you, the end user, full control of what information you capture and how you access that information. And I'll show you what we mean. So if I quickly jump into the top right and I go to the admin section, I'm going to go to the application section. Now, this admin section that you're viewing, these are the same configuration section and tools that our implementation team use when they implement Daptiv. So we don't have any kind of special software or hidden tricks. We give you full control, the same control that we have when we set up an instance for a customer. And then edit risk, there we go. All right, there we go. So now again, we're doing some configuration here. We're actually, we're editing the risk register, which is something that an admin would do. And you can see it's still very wizard-driven approach, very easy to do, very easy to navigate. Now I'm going to go to the data field selection. These are all of those fields that we had in that risk register that come out of the box. We have risk ID, which is an item number. We have risk name, which is a text field. You can see the different types of fields we can capture. You know, you can have date fields, cross-reference, etc. Now, with these dynamic applications, if you don't like what we provide out of the box, you can delete it and start from scratch, or you can edit it. So I can come in here and I can change any one of these fields. So for example, I'm going to change a status field. I think one of these the status here. So this is the status field. This is the overall status, and it's a type status. So if I go 2 tabs over to the status field, I can select which status field I want to edit. I'm going to edit the overall status, and that is identified, mitigation strategy acceptable, strategy invoked, or risk resolved. And I don't, for example, I don't like having 2 green icons. So I'm going to change the risk resolved to blue, for example, and I'm going to set that icon. Or I can change whatever naming I may want, etc. And I can do all of that here. So we give you full control of how you capture the information, what you capture, and who also views it. So if I jump back 1 tab to the field properties, I can select which fields are required and then which fields are visible in this list header column. So you may have fields that you use specifically for calculation that no one else needs to see. you can go ahead and hide those fields and just show the fields that you need access to, or the information that needs to be digested by the different stakeholders. We can also add calculations. So we may want to calculate something like risk magnitude or exposure, etc. We can add those calculations. And then you can set the permissions. So again, we talked about the different levels of access and permissions that users have within Daptiv. I can from here, you can see that we're looking at the Agile project at the moment. And for this Agile project, we will have different roles set up. And now we can specify for that project, those roles, what can they do with this application? And we can do that, and we can have different permissions for every project type as we go through. So if I change this, for example, from Agile to IT project, I will have different roles, and I can configure what those different roles can do in terms of this application. So that is the concept of a dynamic application. And that's how, obviously, we can configure and tailor the solution for multiple organizations, whether they're small, medium, or large, across multiple industry sectors as well. And we talked about earlier, I showed you that home, the home screen that had status and profile information. And if we go to these, the workspace area, hold on a second, excuse me, let me go home here. Workspace type, there we go, workspace fields. I'll show you how we can configure that here in this solution. So I've gone to the workspace fields area, and you can see that we have profile fields, which is one of the sections we showed you. And we also have, if I scroll down a little bit to the bottom, I'll just let go to meeting catch up because there's usually a bit of a lag. I can see status fields as well. There we go, status fields. So we can specify, which fields relate to a profile or a status. And you can see from some of these fields that, some fields like strategic theme are across multiple project types. So Agile, IT, whereas others are simply for one project type, in this case, new product development. So you can really configure the solution to your liking. Okay, so really quickly, before we move on, we've kind of discussed the kind of portfolio approach of capturing demand, prioritizing it, making sure you do some capacity planning and forecasting. Then we looked at the interaction a project manager and a user would have with the workspace, which is this project area we're in now, and how they can enter information in terms of the different applications. So if they need to enter a budget, for example, they would use the budget plan application, or if they need to enter a risk, they would use the risk application. So we've looked at how we can get data into Daptiv. So now, if there are no questions, I'm going to move on to dashboards and reporting. So are there any questions before I move on?
Not at this stage, no.
Excellent. Okay. All right, dashboards. Now all the stuff that's nice to look at. All right. So I think this is the page that you originally saw when we first logged on to the solution.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So in Daptiv, we can configure multiple dashboards for the users. If I click on more dashboards here at the top, you can see that I've actually grouped them by the different types of stakeholders that may need to access this information. So there's portfolio level and resource specific dashboards. There's things like agile dashboards and risk and issue dashboards, etc. So what we're looking at here is a portfolio dashboard. And the feedback we get from a lot of our customers is that as they mature as a PMO, they will start to utilize these dashboards for all of their reporting and presentation requirements. So completely getting away from creating PowerPoints or using static PDFs, etc. They will start to utilize Daptiv's dashboarding for all of those needs. And two reasons for that. One is that the information is completely live in the solution, and two, that all of these dashboards and reports can be configured with drill-through capability. So if we're looking at this, for example, we're looking at this portfolio in terms of the business units. So we're analyzing the portfolio in terms of business units. However, if we were in a meeting and we wanted to look at this, for example, by program, and we wanted to analyze how the programs are doing, we can quickly switch that information. We can quickly click that drop down and switch the view that we're looking at, which is hard to do if you're doing obviously a PDF or a PowerPoint presentation. Also, there's drill-through capability. So looking, for example, at the graph on the right-hand side, these allocated resources here, if something struck me as odd, for example, let's say the engineering role here in the architecture program, what I can do is I can click on that, and it will drill through and it will run me a resource utilization report on that specific resource type. So now something struck me as odd, and I want to view this engineering role in a bit more detail. Now I get this utilization report, which looks at this engineering role here. It breaks it down by the named resources that are actually engineers, and then it further breaks it down by the different projects that those engineers are working on. And I can view here allocated versus scheduled versus actual hours, etc. So again, that nice drill through capability that lets you analyze and dig a little bit deeper. If we go back to that portfolio dashboard, you can see as well that the name of the projects are links. So I have the ability to drill through there as well. Same on the health of the project as well. So, again, a lot of built-in functionality into one little dashboard. With all of these dashboards, with all of these dashboards, if I click on the View In button in the top right, they can all be exported to different formats. So if I wanted to actually send someone a PDF of this, I can. As well as other formats that you see there. Now, in terms of reporting and dashboard reports, Daptiv comes bundled with IBM Cognos, which is obviously a very capable enterprise class reporting suite. There's no need to purchase additional software. There's no need for any installations. It's already bundled into the solution. And that allows us to really do a lot of great things with reporting. Not only report on data that sits natively in Daptiv, but also report on information that we may be integrated to as well. So there's a really cool dashboard here for service management that I like to show as an example. So Daptiv itself is not a service management solution. We're not a help desk solution. However, through integration, Daptiv can quickly become your single source of truth for reporting across the organization, and even for the different business units. And you can see the types of reports you can get here in terms of the help desk tracker. We can view help desk analysis, or even view things like PCR detail. So it really becomes a great tool in that sense, so that if you have any other applications integrated into Daptiv, you can quickly and easily create reports for those as well. If I quickly jump to one thing I also wanted to discuss as well in terms of reporting, this goes back to earlier we discussed views. So for example, if you have someone that manages risks within your organization, they can have access to this risk, the global risk tab. I'm going to do it by project. And then they can manage risks centrally from here. So now we're looking at all risks by project. They can go ahead and quickly create those views to help them manage risks more efficiently. So they can view risks by business unit, by geographic location. They can, you can see here, for example, if there was a program manager, I can view risks that are just escalated to the program level. So then, of course, that program manager can solely focus on those risks, for example. So with the use of views through those global tabs, again, you can have individuals who manage those risks centrally directly from there. What I'm going to quickly go and show you is the reporting section. So through the report section of Daptiv, we can access our report catalog. So Daptiv will come out of the box with a number of reports for all levels of the hierarchy. But what I wanted to show you from here is that because we have IBM Cognos bundled into the solution, directly from here, from the submenu, you can actually go ahead and either open the Query Studio or open Report Studio. So you can actually create your own reports. If I quickly click on that, it will open up in a new window, and you will have full Cognos authoring capabilities built directly into the web browser. So you can go ahead and edit any reports that you currently have, or you can create new reports from scratch with complete Cognos control.
Oh, wow.
I'm just waiting for this page to load up. There we go. So I can create one from a template. I can open an existing project or existing report, excuse me, and edit that, make a tweak and turn it into a whole nother report, or I can create a new report from scratch. So we have all of that functionality built into the browser, which is great. All right, so sorry, just seeing we've got about 10 minutes left. I thought I would leave that for any questions or discussion that still needs to be had. Any questions, guys? Anything I didn't cover that you were hoping to see, maybe from a functionality perspective, or?
I see there's a timesheet tab. Did we have a look at that?
Oh yeah, yep. So what I will do is I'll go back to Anna. I'm gonna impersonate Anna again, so I can view her timesheets. That's a really cool feature we have, as well as this impersonate user. So it allows the admin to make configuration changes and then impersonate the users affected to see and make sure that everything has been done correctly. So a couple things with timesheets. All right, so we have this built-in timesheeting capability. So we have obviously full timesheet capabilities that can be accessed directly from the solution. But we also have this, you see this little orange button here called Daptiv TTM. So that's called Daptiv Task and Time Management. And what it is a dedicated HTML5 URL link that will provide the user a direct HTML5 access to their timesheet. So instead of from a phone, having to log into Daptiv and navigate the solution to your timesheets, you can have this link set up as a URL, saved URL. You click on it, it'll take you directly to your timesheet. Where you'll log in and you'll have this nice HTML5 view of your timesheets, a very mobile kind of centric view. Now this HTML5 view will dynamically adjust to screen size. So whether you're using it on a tablet or a phone, it will automatically adjust to those specifications. Okay. So you can see I can go ahead and enter tasks. I can flag tasks. I can add comments. So it does have a bit of functionality there. And I can, of course, submit my timesheet for approval if that's what I need to do. Getting a different look, let's go back to the system here. And we can see here a couple things. So with the timesheets here, we have a couple things on the page. We have obviously the estimated time to complete. We have a notification here. You can see this little arrow that I've just highlighted. That's saying that the ETC has been changed from the planned work. So the planned work specifies 8 hours. However, the new ETC is 6.4. So it's just giving a notification to the approver that that has been changed.
Okay.
You can see also that we have non-project things that we can attach to tasks and timesheets. So there is non-project work meetings, admins, sick leave, whatever it may be. We can account for that. Holiday, there's this help desk workspace, so you can assign. One of the things you can do in Daptiv is assign someone to, for example, like a help desk project. So it's not really a project, it's just assigning, let's say, 20 hours a week that they're going to be working on help desk, and then they will only be available for another 20 hours a week for project work, for example.
Okay.
Yep. So again, you can see here that the very top two lines differentiates between adding a specific task or just adding time against a project. So the top one is just adding time against a project, whereas the next one down, the big fish migration, we can actually, oh, sorry, I need to click on that. There we go. Let's go back to the timesheet. The next one down, the big fish migration, actually has a WBS task that the time will be put against.
Okay.
Same thing here, we can leave comments at the task level, or we can leave comments at the overall timesheet level, depending on where you want to leave those comments. And of course, we can submit these timesheets depending on your process. They can be either automatically approved or they can be submitted for approval to specified approvers, depending on what your process is internally. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool.
Yep. All right. Any other questions?
That's it from me.
And Mark, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Mark, to that. Sorry, Aaron, did you have a question?
I was just going to say that I don't at this stage, and unfortunately I missed half the demo because our CEO didn't keep quiet. So I'll circle back with Antonella. She's taken some good notes. It would be great if there's a video of the demo that I can have a look at, and I'll come back with any questions.
Excellent.
Yeah, Aaron, we just spoke at the start. We recorded this session, so we'll make that link available to you so that you can catch up on the first bit, and also obviously you can share it with anyone else who you might want to get their feedback or view on.
Yeah, excellent.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you guys very much for your time and the opportunity to present Daptiv today.
Great, thank you very much for that.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, see ya.
Thanks, Alex. All right, bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.